It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. Today, we're looking ahead to our trip to Bournemouth on Friday. I would normally say sunny Bournemouth, but if anyone's checked the weather, it's anything but sunny Bournemouth. It'll be stormy Bournemouth on Friday night. Can we get back to winning ways after that disappointment at Villa Park? We'll have the final word on that game and all the controversy surrounding it. And as ever, we'll dive into some of your emails and some other Fulham topics. I'm joined on the Thursday Club, as ever, by Jack Collins. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Sammy. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. That is Ireland and London Irish fan Jack Collins. We're joined by Harlequins and England player Fin Baxter. Hello.
Hello, nice to be here.
Thanks for coming on the pod. Very exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Tell us a little bit about your Fulham backstory. Obviously, we know you from your rugby exploits. Obviously, you've made your England debut in recent years. It was very exciting to see you also get a try in the Six Nations as well, and all flying the Fulham flag. But yeah, how did you get into supporting Fulham?
So my best mate was a season ticket holder probably 10 years ago when we were at school, and I liked football. I didn't really have a club. I kind of grew up just kind of without the kind of touch of a close club. But he had season tickets at Fulham, and I was like, I want to come. I want to come and see some live footy, and it was amazing, and I loved it from the first time I went. And those two season tickets quickly became our season tickets. And,
nice.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
And how much Fulham do you get to see but being a professional rugby player? Obviously, your weekends are normally fairly packed.
Yeah, there's a lot of clashing, unfortunately, now. But back in our last year in the Champ, I probably went something close to, I reckon, 3 times a month.
Yeah.
Just with the midweeks, I managed to get there all the time, and it was amazing. And there was that one week where we scored 14 goals in a week. I was telling everyone, and it was brilliant.
And how is all the rugby going at the moment? Obviously, you got some exciting internationals coming up in November. So how's all that going? So
yeah, our season just started. Last weekend was our first game, and it's going to be a block of 5 in the Prem, and then the autumn internationals start. So we'll play Australia, Fiji, Argentina, and I think New Zealand. And it's going to be non-stop really. And we've just kind of come off a tour to Argentina and America, and that was amazing. So yeah, back in the flow of it.
Yeah, and what is it like then? What is it like at Twickenham, playing in front of that kind of crowd? I mean, obviously, I'm sure the Cottage would be the number one dream place to run out at, but Twickenham must be a good close second.
It's been amazing to play there every single time, and especially in that France game, as you mentioned, there's the noise. It felt like it was shaking. It was really incredible. And what's funny is that the getting used to international fans in like Europe and stuff, they've always been pretty loud throughout. And then going to Argentina this summer, they were mental. Everyone was on their feet. Everyone was jumping. And they were so passionate, but then the moment we score, the moment we do anything well, it's kind of a bit of silence. But yeah, it was incredible to see that.
Amazing. Well, look, let's dive into some Fulham chat from the weekend. The final word from the 3-1 defeat by Villa. Obviously, Jack, it was definitely a disappointing performance, but there were mitigating circumstances to Fulham's defeat because, yes, sure, we switched off after the break. There was some pretty poor defending, and Fulham then struggled to really get back into the game once we'd gone 2 goals down. But I think all the talking points early on in the week has been the refereeing decisions. Fulham once again feeling very hard done by refereeing decisions on the pitch. There's obviously 2 key incidents that I think most Fulham fans are pointing at. There is the foul on Josh King. It was given as a dive by the referee, and then the Matty Cash handball. Where do you stand on both of those? Do you think that Fulham were wronged, or do you think actually, in the cold light of day, taking off your Fulham hat, 1 or 2 of those decisions were understandable?
I can understand why both of them were given, like in the way that they were. Again, I think that there are two decisions in the grey area that if they were given on pitch, I don't think they're overturned.
Yeah.
Right. And I think in particular the second one stings for us. The first one, look, Josh King is going down before he makes contact. Is there contact though? Yes, like there is. And ultimately, is that enough to justify a penalty? I think probably, although I can see why it's not given, because he is already on the stumble. I think the second one stings for me because it's pretty much the same as the Ryan Sessegnon jump against Chelsea. And there's obviously an outstretched hand. Does Matty Cash mean to handball the ball there? No. Do I want to see those given as handballs? Not hugely, if I'm honest. But under the current laws that we have in the game, under the current applications of those laws, we've been on the wrong side of that decision already this season, with someone having their arm out and blocking the ball, without meaning to, in a situation that would have potentially led to a goal and looked like a shot on target. I do have some issue with the phrase mitigating circumstances, though, because Fulham are 1-0 up at this point, right? And obviously a second goal changes the complexion of the game a little bit. I 100% take that. But Fulham still have the lead, playing against an Aston Villa side incredibly low on confidence, who are starting to get frustrated, and the crowd's starting to get frustrated by the situation they find themselves in. And we switch off not once, not twice, but 3 times in the space of, obviously with a break in the middle, but in the space of about 5 minutes of actual played football. And that for me is the thing that stings, because if we were 1-0 down, or if that was a decision at the other end that went our way that turned the game back against us, like it did against Chelsea, for example, I think there's more kind of grounds for gripe, if you will. And the fact that we had control of the game, we were playing against a very poor Aston Villa side, I think. And that's the thing that grinds on me, is that Villa were there for the taking. They weren't good at the weekend, I don't think. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who said that either of those teams were particularly strong, given the circumstances. I think for me, the thing that is that collapse, to switch off just before the break and allow not just any player, but Ollie Watkins to score his first goal of the season and kind of end his drought and give him some confidence back. You lift the crowd before the break, and then 5 minutes into the second half, you switch off twice in 2 minutes to allow the game to get away from you. Yes, there are frustrating circumstances regarding the VAR. Yes, do I think at least one of those two should have been a penalty? Sure. But I think we were the masters of our own downfall here. And Drew's written a brilliant piece, a brilliant column on BBC Sport, which was basically about Fulham need to be able to get out of our own heads when things go against us. And for me, I think that's the thing that's kind of stuck with me this week. It's that other teams use, frustration as fuel. We seem to allow it to kind of ruin any game plan we might have had and let it get to us to a point where we stop playing the football that had given us the ascendancy to begin with.
Yeah, Finn, I mean, obviously you must encounter similar situations on a sports field. Something goes against you, bad decision, or maybe just a bit of great skill from the other team, whatever. How difficult it is in those moments, and particularly in a game like rugby, which has always been about momentum, to actually shake it off, dust yourselves down, and not let it become 2 tries, 3 tries, as it did with Fulham on the weekend. It really felt like once we conceded the second goal that our heads had gone, and the third goal to me felt a little bit inevitable. Is that coming from the coach? Is that coming from the captain on the field in order to kind of rally the team, in order not to let one bad thing become something that completely kills your match?
Yeah, so in rugby, what I think the main difference is that there's quite a lot of not quite a lot of, but there's dead time. Like, people go down injured, there is a stop and play, and in that moment the captain can bring everyone together. And in football there aren't many of those opportunities to bring every player in and talk and have some clarity and look, they're professional footballers who've done it all their life. They are, I'm sure they have ways of doing it, and that they are doing it and communicating with each other. But when we have those situations, it's always just like, it's happened now. Like, we cannot change it. Let's do our next thing, be the best thing we've done today, kind of thing. Yeah,
100%. And then on some of the controversial calls, I think that Fulham fans are feeling incredibly, and justifiably so, I'm part of this. I feel like on the whole, Fulham fans are feeling very hard done by referee calls. And Marco Silva wears his heart on his sleeve when it comes to refereeing decisions. And obviously, rugby's always been a very different sport when it comes to the acceptance, I think, of bad decisions. Do you think that sometimes, it's understandable to be upset about decisions, but do you sometimes think football could take a little more of a leaf out of rugby's book of like, okay, that's a bad call, we didn't agree with it, but you're not going to change the referee's mind here. You can't go back in time and re-allow Josh King's goal against Chelsea or give a penalty for a handball. So just accept it, move on, and there's not too much points. Or do you just think that the cultural differences of the sports have to be accepted?
I think potentially, but potentially there needs to be a kind of let's get on with it attitude. But there is so much grey in football, and get me wrong, in rugby there is grey as well, but it's more definitive, and stuff like the handball rules and all these kind of like as you said, the Muni's foul. Like it's just a bit like the referee somehow convinced himself under something they're pushing at the moment and convinced himself of a foul, when in rugby it's just not. It's not very much like that. So I think the more grey in football doesn't help, and that's where that frustration comes from, because both sides can probably equally argue a point, but the fact the referee's made a decision ultimately decides that.
I mean, when it comes to VAR, Finn, obviously it's the most controversial topic in the sport. Do you sometimes, as a fan going to games, look at the way that football deals with the process of VAR and think, God, we've got it sussed in rugby? Or maybe actually, has rugby not got it sussed? Because I went to the England-South Africa game and there was a very controversial try disallowed in that game that I thought from the stands that was disallowed by the TMO. And I was like, what the hell is that disallowed for? And even on replays, it looked very, very harsh. So I sometimes wonder if have we got a rose-tinted view of how good rugby has it? Is it actually that deep down people are just as frustrated?
Rugby definitely doesn't have it 100% sorted. We still have, well, in my opinion, decisions that we haven't got to the right result on. However, because we've had the system in for so long, the referees definitely have the right system, the right kind of decision-making process for the way to get into these decisions. When they go to the TMO, they're very specific with their language. For example, with a try, if they think it's a try on field, then you're looking for evidence to deny the fact, obvious evidence to say that's not a try, and vice versa. And so I think even the fans can understand the process at which the end result is, because if the referee's seen a try on field, you're then looking for deniable evidence, and I think that's the fairest way of doing it, because not every camera angle at the top of a stand's going to see the ball in the line or a foul or whatever. But there does seem to be more howlers in football, that's for sure. And I just think the pressure those referees in football are under is vastly more stressful than in rugby, because again, I go back to the grey area. There seems to be a lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, Jack, the thing for me with the handball is I understand sort of, and the screenshot does make it look bad, doesn't it? Where his arm's out the back. The only thing for me is that ball is literally going into the goal.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't
and
it?
Like, I'm not saying that these examples are the same, but obviously Fulham against United in the FA Cup, Willian handled the ball. The ball was going in the goal. It hit his hand. Willian didn't. I still maintain Willian did not deliberately move his hand in the path of the ball in order to stop that going in. It was just unfortunate. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that shouldn't have been a penalty and a red card. It was, and it was justifiable. But there's an element of like, if the ball is going in and you're using your hand to stop it, it feels to me different, as if like, oh, you were just trying to cross in the ball. Like, he literally stopped a goal. Emi Martinez was probably not going to get to that because it was a well-struck shot from relatively well inside the area.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of me is that I don't know what the handball rule is anymore. Like, and I think it goes back to what Finn's saying, right, about grey areas and all of these elements. Like, for so many years, it was like, okay, if the ball hits your hand in, it's deliberate handball was kind of the rule. Like, accidental handballs were kind of allowed, before the advent of VAR in the game. And then suddenly it was like, well, that's hit his hand in an area and therefore, it has to be punished because and then there's the element, go down the other end. Look, I don't think this should be chalked off, but the ball hits Morgan Rogers' hand before Emi Buendia scores the third, right? Should that be chalked off? No, I don't think so. Like I'm not sitting here being like Villa shouldn't have got that goal. That's not what I'm getting at. But if that, Morgan Rogers gets the assist, effectively, but because he isn't the one that's scored, the handball, because it's accidental, doesn't count. But the handball in the other box that stops a goal doesn't get punished. Like, none of it makes any sense, I think. And like, there is a level, like, I don't necessarily like the handball rule that's used in the Champions League, which is basically like, if it hits your hand, it's a penalty, right? I think that's probably a little bit too far the other way, but at least it's clear. Like, it's like, does it necessarily make sense all the time? Is there decisions that feel incredibly harsh? Yeah. But like, the rule is the rule. Like, it's absolutely black and white. And it's just, if there is a touch on a hand in a box, the penalty is given. Now, that might not be the answer, but at least you can understand the concept of it, which would suggest to you that maybe there is, as kind of Finn was getting at, the referee has less decision to make. Like, there's less grey in terms of what they're doing. And that, I think, is the tricky bit about it.
Yes, there's no like a opinion. There's no, it's this is what has happened. These are the facts. Therefore, this is the result.
I mean, that's what a lot of people are saying, though, about VAR. There was actually a chat in the Fulhamish WhatsApp, and good old Ben Jarman from Canada just said that it shouldn't be in place for anything subjective. Like, it should just be for the black and white calls of football, which are, goal line technology. Everyone's accepted that for a long time, but probably
offside now, I think.
Yeah, reluctantly, I've come to the opinion that offside generally more often than not works.
Semi-automated offside is just fine. Like, it just does a job, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's why I don't understand why that hasn't been taken into Premier League with the World Cup. The World Cup system.
It's now just about in play. It's just you're not getting the same visual element of it.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was just so
black and white.
There you go. It's offside.
Yeah, I mean, it's offside is one of those that I think that for a while they're still arguing about whether it should be all of the foot or none of the foot, and Arsene Wenger keeps trying to change the laws of the game, but that kind of works. But you do just see those decisions on the weekend, and I think that's what's frustrating about VAR is ultimately, would we still be complaining about those decisions if VAR wasn't there? Yes, of course we would. We would look at those and say, how didn't the referee see that? But you used to understand it more. You used to just be able to say, oh, referee's blind. Useless referee, and that would kind of be it. You couldn't change it. Nothing could happen. And even now, like, it does just seem that I saw someone on the BBC Sport live text say, every week is PGMOL got bets on to see how much they can wind up Marco Silva. I mean, the fact that we tried to disallow, they looked at Raul's header. Yeah. Which to me looked like the most clean-cut goal that's ever been scored. It was a corner onto Raul's head.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is a little bit of wrestling in the box between Sander Berger and John McGinn, but like no more than you see in any other game at any given point, right? So like there is that. Look, it wasn't like every decision went against us. I thought Sasha Lukic was lucky to remain on the pitch, if I'm honest. I thought they could have been given about 3 second yellows, over the course of the second half. So it's not like everything went our way. Like I'm not suggesting, or went the other way. And again, I've said this before, I'll say again, like I fundamentally don't believe that there's like corruption in the league. Like, I don't think that it's that. I think it's just simple incompetence, which is fine, like to an extent, because you're, dealing with it. And, like you're saying, Finn, sometimes you come out and you're like, how has the referee not seen that when I've been able to see it from such a clear angle? And there is a frustration around that when those decisions don't go in your way. And it does feel like we've had kind of a season's worth of bad decisions go against us in the first 6 games. And look, like those things happen. But like, I don't think it's that. I just think it is a level of, there's just no consistency across games. And look, even during games, I think it has been the frustration before. And there's always going to be a human element to all of it. It just feels like there just needs to be some sort of codification of the rules, given the fact that we now live in, this is a rule book written for a pre-VAR era that we're now just trying to transpose onto a VAR era. Someone needs to rewrite that rule book to make sense in the context of the way that we're playing football today.
Yeah. Let's come on a bit more to the performance, Finn. Obviously, Fulham started well in this game and potentially could or should have been a couple of goals up. But the collapse was pretty eye-opening. And then I just felt like Fulham's response to going 3-1 down wasn't the best. I mean, Sanderberger and Sasha Lukic are maybe coming in for a little bit of flack, not necessarily on them as players, but maybe the system of constantly having two quite defensive players. Maybe it's more on Marco, effectively, the criticism of always playing with the handbrake on. I must admit, when we were chasing the game, trying to come back from 2 goals down, I didn't really understand why at that point you wouldn't take one of the more defensive midfield pairing off, maybe bring a Wobie into there in order to bring a little bit of dynamism. I mean, and there's an article on the Fulhamish website from George Rossiter where he looks at some of the goal contribution stats of those two, which is still 0 in 85 games, and compared it to other midfield combinations in the league at similar levels at Bournemouth, at Brighton, at Brentford, who all at least contribute best part of 10 in that kind of time frame. Do you think it's time for Marco just to release the handbrake a little bit?
I've always found it a little confusing, just on the pure kind of, as you said, playing styles of them both. And I also think, as of late, like when we've got the ball in attack, I just feel like the spare man, the guy who's free, is either one of them, who's sat back way further back than we need that spare man to be. And so yeah, I really like the idea of moving Iwobi in. I really like that idea, and that obviously frees up left wing for Kevin, who looks bloody fantastic. Yeah, I do like them. I like them both. I think they both work really hard. I think they do a lot of running for us and a lot of hard work. But I agree. I think we need to move one of them.
I think what's interesting about this is that there are going to be games where we want Sander and Sasha together, right? Like there are going to be difficult away games. There are going to be games against the top 4 or 5 at home. We're going to need a little bit more of a stalwart shield, and our attacks are going to come in a slightly different way, slightly more transitional. Slightly down the flanks. That's fine. And I was really hoping that this would be the year that Sasha stepped forward a little bit and started to create. We saw him playing a little bit further forward when he was at Torino, and he was good in those roles. And in the past couple of weeks, there's been flashes of it here and there. The moment where he doesn't score, when the ball's tucked back to him, is a bit of a killer. But equally, I take your point, and I do think we could have done more when we were chasing this game. I have frustrations with the lack of having a number 9 on the bench, with Jonah Kusuyasari coming in, in the summer, obviously young, obviously inexperienced. But if the other option is having Adama playing through the middle, then I'd kind of throw some young and inexperienced against a wall to see what sticks. And I was actually going to ask this to you, Finn, because Adama starts on he starts on the bench. He comes on in that number 9 role. It's clearly not his preferred position. I watched you at the last Friday playing, having to move into hooker from prop to deal with the fact that there were injuries in the situation. How hard is it to adjust for a player? And I know this is obviously very different circumstances, but in terms of you have a preferred position, and most players I think will have a secondary position that they can do a job in, shall we say? How hard is it to kind of adapt, especially mid-game, to a situation that isn't one of your own?
Well, with hookers getting injured and moving to hooker means I have to a very specialist skill of throwing the ball in the line now.
Some darts, I would add.
Yeah, exactly. I've got 50% success.
There you go. That's all right.
1 of 2. Look, and again, this is a level of knowledge that I'm nowhere near at with football, but with any comparisons to the rugby side of it, there will be set shapes, set plays they have, and knowing roles suddenly then is a big one. If you haven't gone through that in the week, you haven't prepared for it, it's going to cause a lot of problems. Obviously, if he is the sole 9 replacement, he will have gone through that. And well, if he's playing to his strengths, speed and just dribbling, it's pretty transferable. But in rugby, at least, aside from that throwing, it was pretty similar. Just run hard and hit things.
But in theory, football should be like broadly similar.
Well,
we're
yes
not,
and no.
We're not making a right back play up front.
No, I take that point. But like also Fulham's structure with Marco Silva has usually been with a number 9 who can hold the ball up at times, who brings others into play, etc. Adama is not that player. Right, like if you're playing with Adama as a number 9, you want someone getting in behind the defence and everything. And there's a moment in the second half where Harry Wilson has the ball and he's looking for Adama over the top. He's like, "Why aren't you running?" And like I kind of feel for both of them in some extent to that at that moment, because Adama obviously would want to get in behind. Like that's the kind of bread and butter to his game. And Harry's obviously looking for that because he's going, well, it's not Raul or Mooney's up front. I'm going to try and get this over the top so that Adama can run onto it. But equally, the team isn't set up to play like that, because that's not how Fulham operate. And so I think, for me, the frustration with that whole situation is that Drew tweeted about this yesterday. He basically says that, you know, if it's no start for Kusiasari, if Mooney's and Raul are both out injured, then someone's got to be held accountable. Now, whether that's Marco for not trusting in the young players that are coming in here, who's been brought in with a huge load of potential, and he's like, I don't really want to risk someone that young and inexperienced. That's one thing. So you can either hold it to Marco, or if it's not, then you have to hold the recruitment team accountable for the fact that they haven't brought in the player that Marco Silva wants. And so there's no kind of middle ground there. Like if there is no sign of Jonah Kusiasare, if both Muniz and Raul are injured, let's hope that they're not. But like, as in that experiment with Adama up front didn't work. Like, as in, because that's not how Fulham operate. That's not how we play the game. And unless Marco is willing to completely switch stylistically, you know, before we go to Bournemouth, and maybe we do. Look, maybe we sit on the back foot, maybe we go 2 up front, maybe we end up with a back 5. I don't know what it's going to look like at Bournemouth. They're a very, very good side, and maybe it is a game where Fulham will just be like, let's play in transition, fine. But if we're seeing the same system trotted out, if we're seeing a side that, you know, are used to having a number 9 who's able to bring others into play, and it's Adama spearheading that attack, for me, I think that's a failure on one side or another. And look, you can make your own mind up which side of that you're going to fall on.
Yeah, I mean, it must not lie. When that lineup came out, the first thing, you see Muniz is out, okay, and it's Raul, all right, fine. Not, a bit disappointing that the Muniz isn't there. It's like, okay, well, Kusiasari must be on the bench. Oh, wait, he's not on the bench. I mean, I felt like it was quite a clear sign from Marco, and he hasn't said that Kusiasari's injured, that if the third striker can't get onto the subs bench when the first striker is unavailable, it feels to me, Finn, like, we're hypothesizing here, but it feels like a bit of a statement from Marco, and he's already made his feelings pretty clear that he doesn't seem to really be very happy with this particular transfer.
And well, I think it comes back to the summer where it's almost deadline day and we've signed a third keeper.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably be on the side that Marco's not happy with it more than anything. Not happy with the business done.
Yeah, I mean, he wondered if at that moment whether Tyreek George would have been someone that would have been handy to have in the squad. Well, not that he coveted himself in much glory on Tuesday night playing up front for Chelsea.
He did okay. That was a difficult game, but yes, maybe yes and no, I think is the argument. I think the fact that he's playing up front is probably a little bit of an indication of where Chelsea are as opposed to actually, what his best skill set is. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's question marks around a lot of that. But also, it appears that Marco Silva was the one that kiboshed that deal, because there was not going to be it was Wilson out and George in, or Wilson stays and George doesn't come through the door. That was apparently, the long and short of it. Marco's decided he wants the experience there. So you can't turn around and be like, I would have preferred Tyreek George. That doesn't work. Because that's not a third striker option. That's another winger to add to, the combination. Talking of wingers, and actually there's something I did want to come into. I thought Samu looked really lively. Considering how much he struggled, I thought, coming on in the Cambridge United game and didn't really get the ball from any of his teammates and had to come looking for it. I thought here he looked like Fulham's most lively option in terms of trying to turn the game around. There's a volley that goes wide, which I think he does well to keep down. There's a couple of moments in late on where he's the one creating and going around a couple of players. We're not picking loads and loads of positives out of this game, maybe Josh King aside. But I did think that Samu's cameo was a lively one.
I enjoyed his positional. Well, I was going to say awareness, but maybe lack of it. He felt a little bit like a kid playing football, where you were like, Sammy, you're on the right wing, yeah? So you need to stay, on the right-hand side of the football pitch. And he went, yeah. Literally minute one, he was over on the left. Just, I don't stick to positions. I run where I want to run. Yeah. But in some ways, when you're 3-1 down and you're just trying to chase the game, I kind of respected it at the same time. But it was just very funny how instantly he's like, yeah, I don't only have to play on the right wing. That's the suggested position, but I can play wherever the hell I like. And I think it worked. And I don't think Villa knew what to do with him because he just kind of ran about the entire pitch. Finn, on Josh, I thought he was amazing, especially in that first half. I mean, he's such a special talent. It feels like he's had an incredibly harsh lesson into what it's like to be a professional footballer, like at this top level. Obviously it's going great for him. I'm sure he is, living the dream. He's an 18-year-old playing Premier League football, and people are starting to talk about could he be an England prospect and all of this. But when you think about the few months that he's had, the disallowed goal against Chelsea, giving away that goal against Brentford, which was just unfortunate. He got his pocket picked and he'll learn from it. And then what happened at Villa, where he gets a couple more decisions not go his way. He gets booked for diving in 2 consecutive games, yet he is just still putting in performance after performance, and people are really starting to take notice of how good he is. It's interesting seeing some of the comments from Villa fans afterwards who are all basically saying like, who is that Josh King kid? It feels like club by club people are starting to realise he's pretty special.
I think he's so impressive, and at an 18 years old,
yeah,
it's just unbelievable. And I also really respect that Marco's obviously made a conscious decision. I'm standing by Josh, and like we're giving him these opportunities because he will improve and he will get better and better and better. And as a young player, that's so much. It takes so much headspace. Like, oh, have I done enough to be in the team next week? Let alone get there in the first place. And I just think it's brilliant. And again, all these tough experiences he's had already are only going to make him a better player.
What is that transition like of, you're playing serious rugby all the way up through youth levels and stuff, but effectively you're playing in front of 50, 100 of people one year, and then the next year you're playing in front of tens of thousands, and obviously in the case of international
you're in front of
rugby,
a packed Stoop, and then you're at a packed Twickenham. Like, it was a hell of a rise, right? Like, but how, I think, to kind of jump on piggyback Sammy's question there, like that change in atmosphere and circumstance, and especially when it happens so quickly, how is it to get your head around?
Well, it was funny because my first season I played was COVID, so I made my debut in front of no one. And then to go from that, and all the other lads were going like, oh, it's just not the same. Like I really hate playing at the moment. Like I'm not getting much out of it. And I'm like, lads, I'm buzzing. Just made my debut and like playing for Quins. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And then only the next year, it's like, oh yeah, right. This is what it's actually about. This is what it's about. And
it was probably quite a good gradual process into what that was like, I guess, in some ways.
And then because Quins every year will play big game, our Christmas game at Twickenham, and then we've got another summer one called Big Summer Kickoff, and so those were really good exposure as well for like 80,000 fans at a club game. It's amazing. It is really amazing, and that time of year as well, it's so special. And so that was a really good kind of exposure really for when those England games happened, and it's you can't really get used to it, if I'm being honest, that many people, and it's just so special.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Obviously, massive congratulations to Red Roses for what they achieved on Saturday. And I was watching a couple of them on the One Show speaking about what it was like to suddenly play in front of 80,000 people, and they all seem to suggest that, like, they're there, but at the same time you don't know they're there. It's like they seem to describe it as quite a weird feeling of like it's almost a bit out of body.
You're so alert and so in the moment, so concentrating on what you're doing and your next job, that you can't like have a look oh yeah, there's a few people up there as well.
Yeah.
Like otherwise you've missed something.
Yeah.
And like you haven't done a good enough job. So they're bang on. You're so kind of hyper alert in the moment that you can't dwell on that.
Yeah, but it was interesting. I thought that some of what Josh King said after the Brentford game, because he clearly did notice that reaction that he got after the mistake, and I thought it was such a. I mean, obviously, Alex Iwobi got lots of praise for how he dealt with that situation as a, helping out a young person. But he also did mention how the Fulham fans all sung his name straight after that mistake. So it's obviously like he is noticing it at the same time in those moments where he needs it.
Yeah, also, I think what's really interesting here is that, like, Josh King's kind of not really had any... There's not really been a bounce. Do you know what I mean? Like, the last time, obviously, we had someone break through was Fabio. He got that last start in the Premier League. I think it was against Southampton, and then we got relegated, and he became a kind of stalwart in the Championship. And then he moved on. And with Josh, like, he's kind of, like, poked his head above the parapet a couple of times in the last couple of years. And then it's been like, bang, you're our starting number 10. For the entire season. And it's the difference in terms of like the if you break through in the Championship like Ryan Sessegnon did, like Fabio Carvalho did, and then suddenly you move up to the Premier League, I imagine there's a sense of like, oh, okay, I'm going kind of incrementally in a way here. And this is kind of what I wanted to bring to you, Finn, like, because he hasn't had that. He's gone from basically academy football, like a couple of appearances off the bench, like the odd start last season. I think it was one Premier League start, wasn't it, against Southampton, to the point now where people are talking about him as the fulcrum of Fulham's attack and like the best player on this team, of a team full of Premier League stalwarts. Like that experience of kind of going from academy or youth level and then suddenly being in the first team. What's that experience like? Because that, I think, is the thing for me that probably does carry the most similarity in terms of, rather than the atmosphere, like that difference of you just jumping into, like absolute senior level and be like, right, I'm here now.
Yeah, my first kind of 2 months was getting over the fact that I was sharing a changing room with Danny Kerr, Chris Robshaw, Mike Brown.
What did you think of Chris's Strictly performance?
He was very good.
You have to say that.
I think it's such a big change, and especially with what I do and the main role I played, scrummaging, the step up from youth level to first team is like it's like a different sport with that part of the game, and the adjustments you have to make they have to be quick because one of those, if you don't swim you drown kind of moments. And I think credit to Josh that he's been thrown in and keeps getting thrown in, and he's still there and he's still putting out good performances. It's daunting and it's stressful, but you just got to keep going, and that's what he's doing, and it's brilliant to see.
Yeah, and Marco keeps trusting in him, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Right,
we'll continue.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break there. Afterwards, we'll look ahead to Friday's game against Bournemouth. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. It's Sammy here on the Thursday Club with Jack Collins and Fin Baxter. Thanks so much to My Kind of Cruise for sponsoring the Thursday Club and Fulhamish's YouTube channel this season. If you want to get a great deal on a cruise, either for this Christmas or Easter coming up, wherever you want to go in the world, My Kind of Cruise is the world's first cruise booking app and website. They've got unbeatable prices. You can pay low deposits, and going on a cruise is pretty awesome. Think drinks on tap, sun in your hair. You can watch all the Premier League matches on board as well. Head to mykindofcruise.com or download the app from the Google Play or Apple Store and use the discount code Fulhamish for an exclusive discount on your next cruise. That is thanks to My Kind of Cruise, sponsors of the Fulhamish YouTube channel for the 25-26 season. Finn, we have got a little challenge for you now that combines, obviously, your love of Fulham, but also your professional career of being an England rugby player and Harlequins rugby player. So we've got some different roles that we want you to fill, but for some weird reason, let's say this is the World Cup final, but for some weird reason, you can only use Fulham players past and present to fill the roles, which probably isn't ideal scenario for you. And yeah, as I said, you can be past, present, can be managers, whatever. And we need you to pick them, really. So first of all, it's pre-match. You're facing You're facing South Africa for the Rugby World Cup final. Sadly, no rugby coaches are available, and only Fulham coaches, past or present, are available to give the rousing team talk pre-match. Which one are you
Not the
backing?
tactics, I assume, just the team talk.
Just the team talk,
Well,
yeah,
I
to
think
get you fired up.
I think it's got to be Marco's passion.
Yeah?
Just watching him on the sideline at the moment, he's up, down, left, right, and some of that passion would get the boys rolled up, I think.
Yeah, when I thought about this question, the only one that I thought might just fit the rugby environment would be Slavicia Kanovic.
Oh, wow.
Just hot, just absolute nutter.
Yeah, no, I think that would be too much. Like, bang his head against a wall to try and hype you up.
Scare us all,
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. Everyone's like looking at each other out the side of their eyes. Like,
Okay,
this is good.
next up, you're in the dying minutes. You're down, but you're a try away from winning the match. It's gone through the backs. It's gone for the fly halves to the centres, and it's going to a winger who you need to back to make the final 10 yards and get over the line. Who are you picking as a Fulham player to be that winger to see the ball home?
I think it's got to be Traore.
Yeah, I thought you might say that.
He's, well, the size of him, first of all, but he is rapid, and watching him at the moment just sprint is just pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, he would have been a great rugby player.
I think so. I think he would have been.
I mean, maybe just his Spanish held him back from
Yeah.
not exactly known for their rugby, but
Unless he's from the Basque country, but unfortunately,
Well, yeah.
I think we're from the wrong part of Spain.
okay. Who would you like to be pack leader? Who would make a great pack leader out of Fulham past and present?
Oh, well, Mitro's got that aggression.
Yeah,
That just got to say that. But I do think Yauchim, I think he just has like a calmness around him,
okay.
and I think that is a really underrated skill of, with all the chaos going on, just being clear and direct. And I think that he is that all over.
Okay. Which Fulham player would be most likely to have to do 10 minutes on the sidelines and get a sin bin?
Mitro.
Yeah, thought you might say that. Okay.
I'd love to see how Sasha Lukic could get himself carded in rugby. That's my genuine Joao Palinha. How would JP?
Oh, that's a great point.
How
I
would-
missed him.
How would JP manage to get himself carded? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I know he would.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Okay. There's an opposition player. He's gone through the line. He's through, and someone needs to do a tap tackle. Who are you backing to make the last ditch?
Who am I backing for the last ditch? I mean,
You need a bit of speed in there as well, don't
Yeah,
you, to keep up?
but you also need to be a bit of a nutter as well, because if you get a bit too close, it's a boot in the face, and that kills. But then it's quite a hard skill, because the way I've whenever I've had to do it, I've always started my swipe
Yeah.
when the other foot is like, I time to hit the other foot, because you always get it wrong.
Right.
So therefore you hit the right foot.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Cess.
Okay.
Just a bit of coverage. He's quick, and he's got a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah. Finally, it's a last minute penalty, and you need it to win. Maybe it's on the touchline. It's not an easy one. Who are you backing to stick it between the posts as a Fulham player?
I think Tom Kearney, the
Yeah.
man, takes on all
Just
the pressure.
absolutely begging it to be on the right touch.
Yeah. If it is on the right, Tom Kenny could make it probably from anywhere on the field. On the left, might be a bit more difficult. All right, there we go. The interrogation's over, Finn. Some great answers there. Let's look ahead to Bournemouth on Friday night. Why do we always, Jack, get Bournemouth on why is it never like Saturday 3 p.m.? It's always some random time, like a Monday evening or a Friday evening. It looks like, I think it's Storm Amy is
The first one of the year.
is coming
It's
through
the
on
end
Friday.
of the hurricane, isn't it? I'm actually in Galway this weekend, and it's one of those where the weather forecast is like, we're going to get the remnants of the hurricane. I'm like, it's not going to be a hurricane. It's in Ireland. So it'll probably be fine. But I imagine it's the same storm that's coming in here. So hopefully it'll already passed over, and it'll be in Bournemouth by the time that I'm knocking about.
Yeah.
But it's a weird one. I don't know why it is, but I don't think this hurts us too much, if I'm honest. Like, I quite like the fact that obviously the Villa game on Sunday, yes, there's a little bit less rest between the two games, but I think that there will be a feeling of, right, let's get back out there. And I think we're going to need that against Bournemouth. Like, this is a really, really well put together Bournemouth side. Now, they've rescued a point, against Leeds with that 2-2 draw at the weekend at Ellen Road. But it does feel like Iraola has them moving in a very sensible direction. The fact that they've been very defensively cohesive, I know they conceded twice the weekend, but ahead of that game, with a completely new back four pretty much put in place, I think is a really impressive, feat from what we've seen from Bournemouth and Iraola. So this is really tricky. We spoke before Villa, and I said that what would have been great to get that result was one of the reasons was that these next three are really hard. And I maintain that. I think this is a very difficult game, and I would probably shake your hand for a point right now. But I do think that it being on a Friday night under the lights maybe gives us a little bit of something different, and perhaps we can use that as an advantage and use the frustrations of last week to kind of kick us onwards.
Yeah, Finn, I must admit, I'm just hoping for a slightly more enjoyable game than last season at the Vitality. They scored after a minute, and that was kind of the game done from a Fulham perspective. I mean, yeah, this is a really, really difficult match, isn't it? Bournemouth have just been so impressive since they came up with us. If you think that, the way they came up with Parker, it was all just a basket case when he left. They lost 9-0 at Liverpool. The way that they've run that club, they've got Gary O'Neill to keep them stable. They made the brave decision to go to Andoni Iraola, and they lost their entire defence in the summer, and then somehow this season look even better. I mean, you just have to kind of almost stand up and admire what they've done.
Yeah, it is quite an impressive feat to turn, what an awful situation they were in around. And I think so many of these kind of newer and mid-table clubs in the Premier League have done unbelievable jobs at the moment. I think it's really impressive. As we've said, it's a tough game. And as we touched on earlier about the nines, it's not ideal either. But so I'd be hoping for at least points coming out of that. Yeah.
The thing I always think about Fulham, Jack, is there are some things that I never back us to win 3 in a row, obviously, but we never do. But I also have quite a lot of faith in Marco and the team to always bounce back after disappointing games and performances. I find that whenever Fulham have had a bad game, and whilst we talked about mitigating circumstances, Sunday was no one coveted themselves massively in glory on Sunday. No. I expect there to be a response. I don't, whether that response is enough to get us 1 point or 3, unsure, but I feel like Fulham will come out swinging, and as you say, maybe the shortish turnaround time doesn't hurt us too much here.
Yeah, I mean, this is tricky. I think you're right. One of the things that I kind of have felt with Fulham, and it's Marco Silva's perhaps greatest strength from where I'm standing, is that I don't really go into any game, maybe bar Man City away, and be like, Fulham will lose this. Like, it feels like there is always, at the very least, a puncher's chance that Fulham come out with 3. And so, I still maintain that I would shake your hand for a point, but it wouldn't surprise. I wouldn't be stunned if Fulham came out of this one and we'd just gone to Bournemouth and won, and everyone was a bit like, "Whoa, Bournemouth has started the season really well." Fulham have just gone there and beaten them. I wouldn't be shocked by that as a turnaround, which is kind of part of the beauty of it, and also part of the frustration around it, because this on paper is a far more daunting task than going to Villa Park with them completely out of form at the weekend, despite our record at Villa Park. Take that aside for a minute. So, I think we can. I think what's going to be really interesting is how Fulham line up, what the shape looks like, how Marco potentially deals with the lack of 2 senior strikers, who plays through the middle. These are all guessing games from where we're standing right now. We don't know the answers to any of those questions. He said that Muniz might be out for a little while, might not. It could be after the international break, could not. There's so much of that remains up in the air at the moment, and obviously we haven't had the press conferences or anything yet to give us any more clarity on what's going on. So I think for me this kind of is one of those ones where it's a bit of a complete unknown. Normally I can sit here and be like, I'll probably tell you 10 of the starting 11, but I don't know this time out. I don't know if this is the game he finally goes, we might let Kevin off the leash here. I might let Sammy Chukwueze have a go, especially if there isn't a recognised striker and Fulham are playing in a different manner and trying to play in transition or whatever that is. I wonder if we see a slightly different side to try and change that. Maybe this is the game where Anthony Robinson comes back in. I'm intrigued to see what more than usual, I'm quite like almost already excited to see what the lineup looks like on Friday, so that we can examine it and see what Marco Silva tries to do to alleviate the problems within the camp right now.
And what's difficult with that as well, with a short turnaround, not only is then the recovery, literally going game to game, more under stress, but then also you don't have enough training time. That training time is so squeezed, and so implementing new stuff and loads of new stuff, like we've just touched on, is more difficult, and it's less promising. That I'd expect something more similar.
I mean, just trying to think of, as you say, the problems in the lineup and where the decisions are. I mean, obviously some positions baked in. We know that it'll be Leno, Bassi and Anderson, although probably Bassi and Anderson's performances on Sunday were probably their weakest of the season.
Yeah, and Jorge Cuenca's still there knocking on the door, you know?
Yeah, but I think when he's got so many positions to fill, I doubt he's gonna do unenforced changes.
I just wonder if he just goes to the 5 at the back for this one. Cuenca comes back in alongside them, and we see that system utilised to try and play. Because like Finn makes a really good point there. Like, are you going to try and change the way that a front three works in this situation with that amount of time? Probably not. But we know that 5 at the back formation is like naturally more transitional because of the way that it plays and the way that it shapes out.
Yeah. And it's something he's gone to before.
And so I wonder if we see that just as a kind of almost a response. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that happens, if the front two is something like Adama and Kevin.
Wasn't that loosely what we played Wolves away?
Yeah.
Adama was kind of up front.
That was with Raul though, wasn't it? But yes, like as in, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what, if there is a switch to try and alleviate the fact that there's no number 9. And look, again, we're assuming that Jonah Kusiasari doesn't play, but maybe he does. Maybe Marco does just chuck him in. Again, I'd be shocked, but like,
I do think you're onto something that you're probably right, is he may go back 5 here because he'll utilise the positions he's got lots. We've got lots of centre back cover. Obviously, Cesc can quite naturally fit into left wing back.
But so could Anthony.
And Timmy Castagne's pretty good at, and right wing back actually suits Castagne more, I think, than it generally suits him playing right back, as proven earlier this season. I think it's just what you do up top, because then you presume it would be Berger, Lukic, and Iwobi kind of through the middle.
Yeah, or Berger, Lukic with King in front of them as a 10, and then 2 like kind of wide forwards.
Yeah,
that's basically effectively what we played with at points in the Villa game, apart from because Adama drifted naturally to the wings, and so King was the only centre point. Does that work, having no one to attack crosses, etc.? I don't know, but like it wouldn't shock me if Marco goes to a 5 here, just to kind of deal with the situation he's got up top.
Yeah, what did you think of Kevin's performance on Sunday? I was a little bit like, I think we're starting to see now a little bit of the Kevin that we were warned might come out. Like, I still think he's a great player, but some of the touches were quite erratic on Sunday. It felt like he needed a cool head in that situation, and he was just a bit like, rah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as bad as the game against Cambridge United. I think he's obviously trying to prove himself, right? And like, he obviously got onto such a great start with that in the Leeds game, and everyone was like, "Wait, this guy!" And then the backup to it has been a bit stumbly. That's fine. It's natural. He's young. He's adapting to a new league. Like, I'm not worried about him, but I do think that there is an element of it that's about like, I'd imagine Marco will have some frustrations with certain elements of lay the ball off. Like, it doesn't have to be all you all the time. That's how you get on to being a special player. And also, if you go every time at the defender, they know what you're doing. Like, as in, sometimes if you flip it off and there is an overlap or whatever, they're not going to understand exactly what you're doing every single time. Whereas if you run at your fullback and you take them on every time, yeah, sure, you might beat them 7 out of 10 times because you're unbelievable and you've got incredibly quick feet, but people get set and they understand you a little bit more. So I think it's probably just a matter of time.
Yeah. From this Bournemouth side, Jack, who's impressed you this season? I must admit that every time I see Antoine Semenyo play against us, all the way back to his Bristol City days, I'm always nervous. He's one of those who his rise and his stardom doesn't surprise me, because I never forget that game where we won 6-2 at the Cottage, but he scored, I think, both of Bristol City's goals that day. And I was just like, who is this kid?
Yeah. Very special footballer. I've been really impressed with Adam Scott as well. I know he didn't play in the game against Leeds, but I think that this could be his breakout year. I know that he's been someone, highly touted for a long time and, who was brought up into the Premier League from the Championship after some very, very impressive performances. It feels to me that this could be the season he establishes himself as a very, very competent Premier League number 8, like brilliant feet, can create from deep, can make things happen, keep game ticking, and also has that tenacity that Iraola wants. He's a little bit injury prone. It's perhaps the only issue that Alex Scott has, but I think that he's one that could really make a big leap this season. Obviously, you've got to be wary of Semenyo. Evan Nilsson's always been someone I've really liked from his days at Porto, and Man United were interested in him at one point, and then suddenly he was at Bournemouth replacing Dominic Solanke. I think he's a really clever footballer. There's goals all over this. Justin Kluivert coming back into the side in the last couple of weeks and making his mark. We know that Marcus Tavernier can score those kind of that singular goal, but he's just really good at it over and over and over again. Adley came in this summer as well. Very, very talented footballer, can play in a multitude of roles. Number 10, a little bit deeper out wide. So they've got a load of really clever players who can kind of feature in different roles. And I think that that's among their great strengths. They're so fluid in terms of that three behind the striker. They rotate and make things happen. So there's plenty to be wary of. Equally, defensively, I think bar the Villa game, and let's just put that behind us now, we've been pretty good this season from that perspective. Can we kind of re-establish that with a good performance against a very good attacking unit here? Fingers crossed.
Yeah. A couple of emails before we finish. This one from Andrew Stanley, titled Villa. Just
Villa.
Villa. Just letting his feel. I mean, this is basically just him expressing his feelings, but I quite liked it. I watched as much as I could bear. Yes, we had plenty of bad luck. Jimenez injured with no backup. King booked for diving when he didn't. Cash not a penalty, but identical to Sessegnon's. However, our defending on the equaliser was appalling, and it was that which got Villa motivated. Any striker short of a goal for a long while. Just wait for the Fulham game. Yes, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, pretty much sums it up, I think.
Yeah, straight to the point.
Yeah. No mucking about. Shouts out to Andrew.
No messing around from Mr. Stanley. Finally, I enjoyed this one from Peter O'Connor, titled AI Knows. Hi, Fulhamish. Just had a quick Google. And what he Googled was, is there a decline in the global bee population? Got the below result from Google's AI overview. Yes, a decline in global bee populations, particularly in wild species, is occurring due to human-driven factors such as habitat loss from intensified farming, urbanisation, pesticide use, and Harry Wilson.
Very good. Very good. It's good to see that AI is working.
It then goes on to say, however, managed honeybee populations have shown increases in some regions like Asia through global per capita managed colonies have decreased, as has the prospects of Brentford FC.
Oh.
Phenomenal.
Well done, Google.
AI is a Fulham fan. Great to see.
Yeah.
Great to see.
There are some things about AI like Sora 2, I don't know if you've seen it, which are utterly terrifying for the human race, but occasionally it gives us a laugh.
Wikipedia is also a big fan of Fulham.
Yes, yeah.
Brentford's owner, Harry Wilson.
Yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that. Fantastic stuff. Finn, before you go, I just wanted to ask you one thing, and I think it's interesting because you've come into this from, obviously you were playing, when you became a Fulham fan, you were sort of working your way up, and now you are a professional athlete in your own right. Has the way you watch the game changed from when you kind of started out as a fan? Do you look at it from a different perspective in terms of, even if that's just is this player not 100%, or different ways of looking at the game?
Football?
Yeah.
So with rugby, first of all, I actually found it quite difficult watching casually, watching with my dad, watching with mates, because all I was looking at was, I turned to work mode and analysing everything. And with football, funnily enough, it's given me a bigger overview of not just, he did a cool thing there and da-da-da. It's you're seeing the patterns and you're seeing what they're trying to do. At least I think I can see.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely. I think it's the amount of detail we go into and our boys go into is always mind-boggling, and to try and getting that kind of experience of that analytical view and the bigger picture is always, I find, very interesting.
Wicked. Yeah, I thought it might have shifted, so yeah. I'm glad to.
Absolutely, because I'd watch 4 or 5 games of rugby on a weekend. Back when I was a kid, and then kind of 2 years in, I was like, God, I don't think I can.
Just give me the scores.
Yeah, I don't think I can watch that right now because you have to watch so much tape in the week analysing your position and be like, I just can't watch anymore.
Fair.
Probably nice to have Fulham and football as a little bit of a release, I guess,
Precisely.
in some ways. Yeah.
Precisely.
Well, look, Finn, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Jack Collins, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sammy. Always a pleasure.
George will be back with the podcast over the weekend, looking back at everything that happens at the Vitality. We will kind of be back this time next week because we're going to be doing the October special edition of This Will Catch On, all of your favourite chants. Have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully we can get a victory in the Storm on the South Coast on Friday. You Whites!
You Whites!
You Whites.